Good morning, you guys. Welcome to Coffee Hangout. So, um, there are some relationships out there, some marriages, maybe even some people. Let's just say you're not in a marriage or a relationship that really are struggling in life and they're leaving out our fourth core. So, here's our fourth core. And I think that these four things are going to absolutely change your life if you can put them into your life. So the first one is, and I'll go through them really quick: eating, making sure that you're eating on time, you're eating it in a thoughtful way, um, proactively, right? And then sleeping, making sure that you're getting the right amount of sleep at the right time. Um, and then exercise. So making sure that you are getting, and everybody's going to be different, but making sure that you're getting the right amount of exercise to um, put yourself in condition basically to live life and to do it in a way that is highly creative. And so those are the first three. But there's the fourth one that we're leaving out that I think is going to give you an ultimate advantage, and that's our spiritual connection. So in that fourth one, everybody will develop or be at a different area in their life. And for me, it's not up to me to script what it is that's in your life, but I do know it needs to be some kind of spiritual connection if you're going to experience goodness, just like the other one. So you can't leave out any of them. As a matter of fact, if you're going to leave out any, you probably shouldn't leave out the spiritual connection aspect. And so if we go to our marriages, it's the same scenario as you don't want to leave out this spiritual aspect. So this comes to my mind because um, there's two Bible studies that I had in the last week where this information popped up that I'm like, man, we really need that. One is I need to make sure that's in my marriage, but then two, I need to make sure I share that with everybody. Um, because what is happening in relationships is a lot of times we're just going around in circles, of trying to figure out like why are we fighting so much? I thought I had resolved the last issue, and then now here we are back again, and what's going on? And so knowing how to do things is one thing, right? But being able to actually do it is another. Like somebody could explain to you how to ride a bike or how to drive a car, but actually doing those things is another until you are first challenged with being able to do it. It might become a little bit easier after you've done it several times, but at first, what makes sense on paper doesn't necessarily make sense in doing. Okay. And so um, it's the same thing with our marriage relationships and our challenges that we're facing in relationships. You're missing an important ingredient that I think would actually change your relationship. So let me give you the two stories that sparked my interest that I think might be helpful for you. And so the first story or the first idea was the idea that in the beginning, like Adam wasn't deceived the same way that Eve was deceived. The thing about Adam is, and it doesn't, this is not a male female thing, this is a person thing. So just kind of understand the principle behind it. And I think that that's really the important thing. I'll sidetrack a little bit, but that's an important thing that happens is we get so caught up um, in like trying to make sense of or trying to prove things wrong that we leave off the parts that could be right for us. And so that's really important for this story as I give it to you. So it's not about whether it was Adam or Eve or anything like that. The only important part is the interaction that happened that we want to be able to learn from. Okay. And so the interaction that happened was that Adam wasn't necessarily deceived. Adam was more concerned about what it was that Eve was doing or how Eve would see him more than anything, and that led to his experiences of shame um, and ultimately being in a different realm, basically, right? And so, how many times do we, and if we think about spiritually, like how many times are we so focused on either running from our past, like what our experiences were, because that's what's on our consciousness, or somehow not losing the argument or losing the battle or losing face with our partner for whatever reason. There could be different aspects of that. One is you might not want to lose the argument, but two, you might not want to show your partner who it is that you are, or you're trying to be better and you can't necessarily get to those scenarios. So there's so many aspects of that concept that are important. But here's the issue is that your focus is on things that should matter to you less and will have an outcome if you do it the other way. So the other way is to be more focused on your spiritual growth and ability more than any other thing. And so that's the piece missing is that you're focused on outside factors, what has happened to you in the past or what might happen later. And because that's on your consciousness, because that's on your in your subconscious, you've trained it. Now you're taking away your ability to be spiritually focused. And if you're not spiritually focused, it's hard for you to live at your higher in your higher the highest version of yourself. And that's important because the suffering happens then, right? So all the suffering that happens in your relationship is based on you not being able to iron out that spiritual aspect of what's going on. Okay. And so as you're looking for it, and this is really important, as you're looking for it, you're not looking for what other people know. You're looking for what's really true for you in that circumstance. So the where you're at today spiritually could be where you're at somewhere totally different, in 2 weeks from now or in 2 years from now. That part doesn't matter. The part that we care about is you becoming more spiritually conscious instead of being conscious about what it is that the important people around you need or want, right? And I know that somebody could replay just that snippet and think like, oh, that's not right. But if you listen to what I'm saying, the ability for you to be spiritually conscious gives you and everybody around you all the things that they need. The challenge is, are you willing to go there and figure out what that actually means for you and what the truth of that matter is? Okay. That's the first story. The second story was in the Bible, maybe a character that's not as popular as Hosea. And Hosea was tasked to go marry his wife again after she had done all kinds of adulterous things. Now, what's not clear is when the adultery took place, like if it was before or after, but they had kids. And his job was not only was he supposed to go marry her again and make that a legit situation, he was actually supposed to go pay the people that she had been in exchange with, right? And so that's a hard ask, right? That's a hard ask. What that's a symbol of, though, is God's relationship with his people at that time. So it was the Israelites. So his people at that time had done the same kind of things, go off and serve other gods, and his deal was to constantly keep accepting them and give them a way back and give them a direction, to be able to deal um, with the things that they were doing that meant that those people go outside of the covenant relationship that they had. So that was his task, right? And so to me, that's the spiritual aspect of that is us being more aware about some of the hard lines that we're creating in our relationship and more about the spiritual responsibility that we have. Like we have a spiritual responsibility to serve each other more than we have a spiritual responsibility or I guess it would probably be like a worldly responsibility to go out and make sure that all of the boxes are checked off, right? And so if you pay more attention to your suffering, you're like, oh, that's not what's going on, or that this person isn't supposed to be doing that in our marriage. And I think it's a popular thing. I need to set boundaries with this person. And so the more that you focus on that scenario, yeah, your marriage is going to contain tons of challenge and suffering inside of it. But if you flip it and think like, what's just my responsibility? Now, I'm not saying there's not pain in situations. I don't know that in your relationship, like, you should go pay all the people that your partner had an exchange with. That's not the idea here. So I don't want to get that twisted. The idea is there's actually a higher level of being. And I think whenever your spiritual consciousness is able to grow and you're able to put that into your relationship, then everything changes. Imagine bringing this concept into your relationship and into your culture of your relationship, where the priority is not winning the argument, the priority is not focusing on how somebody did something, but the priority is on you growing spiritually, right? So what does each situation bring to you that will allow you to grow the spiritual aspect of yourself? So just like our eating, just like our exercise, just like our sleeping, there's preparation that takes place. There's a commitment that takes place. There is a understanding that takes place, and then there's a task that takes place. And so, with spirituality and your growth spiritually, in order to make sure that your marriage isn't suffering, you put this ingredient in and focus on becoming um, more spiritually connected with yourself and in your relationship, including it, and everything changes in your relationship. And so I would say to you, give it a try for 1 month and see the difference, right? When our focus is not on arguing about the last thing, and instead we go to prayer, or instead we go to trying to seek out answers in different spiritually connected ways. I mean, the burden's off, right? The burden's off. So give yourself a chance to have a different kind of experience. Don't make the mistake that is leaving you in a suffering marriage. Continue to find your spiritual connection and do your spiritual growth as much as possible. All right, we'll talk to you soon.